Hello and welcome to The Footprint. The Footprint is a program that is set aside to celebrate the legacies of Ghanaians who have walked the path, those who have chalked some successes that have been written, unwritten, known and unknown. Today we are here to talk to a veritable gentleman, somebody who has done it all, who has seen it all, who has walked the path. He's walked the path of politics, he's walked the path of medicine, he's walked the path of the military, and you can go on, diplomacy. He's seen and experienced the length and breadth of everything that a man has to. Today we are here to speak to him. I will not talk much on this episode of The Footprint. I promise you a wonderful experience with the man himself. But before then, we'll give you an idea of who this man is. My name is Samuel Atamensa, and welcome to The Footprint.
Born in Accra on May 7, 1942 in the Gold Coast, Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe spent his childhood in Adabraka. He left Ghana for the then Czechoslovakia in the 60s, where he trained as a medical doctor in Prague. In 1972, he interviewed to join the military as a doctor. He was enlisted into the military the next year during the regime of the National Redemption Council led by General I.K. Champong. Against the backdrop of an increasingly politicized military in those days, he was imprisoned on suspicion of plotting a coup to overthrow Champong. He was later released, only to be imprisoned in Nsawam again for an alleged coup plot. His experience in politics is well expressed. He is a founding member of the New Patriotic Party. However, it hasn't been all politics. Nyaho served as the chairman of Accra Hearts of Oak Sporting Club and later headed the Ghana Football Association. He also served as Ghana's ambassador to Serbia and Montenegro from 2005 to 2009. In 2014, he published the book Never Say Die, the autobiography of a Ghanaian statesman. These days, he's a commentator on politics and sports in Ghana. Stay tuned. Retired Captain Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe is on Footprints now.
It's good to see you again, Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe.
It's nice meeting you again, Sammy. It's been a long time, really.
It's been a while, dog. Yeah. It's been a while. I mean, for most people who will be watching us today, they would know Dr. Tamakloe, Dr. Nyaho Tamakloe as a politician. Mm-hmm. And even for many people, when they hear the doctor, they take it as a PhD doctor, because of the political brand that you have. Exactly. So maybe there are things we know in public and there are things we do not know, but all will add up to the personality of Dr. Nyaho Tamakloe. So we are here to have a chat and to know who really Dr. Tamakloe is, and then also share with us some of the things that we actually don't know about. Exactly. So Dr. Tamakloe, you tell us, obviously you are a Ghanaian. Now, with a name like Dr. Nyaho Tamakloe, it's easy for one to associate you with the Volta region. Yeah. Tell us about yourself.
Well, it's correct to associate me with the Volta region. But I'm so detribalized that many a time people think otherwise. Uh-huh. My great-great-grandfather, that's Togwe Nyaho Tamakloe the first, was one of those who worked in the Volta region, especially the southern part. Is well known. Mm-hmm. They were the rulers of that place years ago. In fact, recently we celebrated 100 years since he died, quite long ago. That's quite a period now.
Yeah, that's correct.
They have seen a lot, and I'm so happy I carry his name. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my infancy started in Accra here, if I was that way. I was born and bred in Accra.
Oh, you're born in Accra?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To be more precise, I was born in Kolebu. I was told by my mother. That was the old Kolebu, not the new one.
Yeah. The smaller Kolebu.
Exactly, the smaller Kolebu in those days.
Yeah.
And from what I was told by my mother and my father, it used to be a very efficient place in those days. You know. I lost my father quite recently. My mother died about almost 20 years ago. My father died recently.
Wow.
At the age of 104. 8 months, so you can see.
Wow.
They live very long.
That's correct.
And I was told further by my parents that in those days when it was a week, and normally we are adult children after 1 week, depending on for where you come in Ghana. The southern sector, that's what is done mostly. And there was an outdooring that took place in Kolebu itself.
In the hospital?
In the hospital, because it was allowed. They have a nice place, I think it's a garden or something.
Yeah.
Those, the whites were around then. And the outdooring took place there. And my grandfather, that's my father's father, decided that he's going to give me the name of his grandfather, who is Nyaho. So that's why I write the Nyaho. So the Nyaho and the family stool, which is Nyaho Tamakloe, added to that, so I write Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe.
Oh, wow. Now it makes sense. It looks like a mistake when you see it for the first time. I'm sure you suffered this thing in a lot of places.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it always reminds me also of Boutros Gali, which many
That's correct.
Some of these young people might not have heard of him before.
Yeah, we have one at Citi, Fentio, Tahiru.
That's right.
There's a lot of names put together.
Yeah, so those type of double barrel names. This is how I got mine. Now, I had my elementary school here in Accra.
Where exactly?
I started at the Dabraka Presbyterian Primary School.
That's
still
close.
There on the Kwame Nkrumah Avenue.
Wow. You mean Saito?
That's right. What you call
you didn't go to
in those days for Saito. Yeah.
You didn't go to Ghana International School?
No. There was nothing like that in those days.
Okay.
Nothing at all. I remember Akufo-Addo, who is now the president, also went to government school, a Saito school.
Saito?
Oh yeah, before he left the country.
So he learned the English from there?
Oh, I would say, well, in those days, he left quite early. You see, when we were getting into middle school, he left at that level to Europe.
Okay.
You follow me? So I think the
influence. So
influence
he had done the basic.
Exactly. Because from primary school,
was it Kimbu?
Yeah, he went to Kimbu.
Okay, but you knew each other at the time?
Oh, we knew each other. We've been friends from infancy. We know ourselves very well.
Wow. No, we'll get there.
So, when I go to middle school, in those days you have the primary school, you get to the middle school. I got the middle school level. I had an entrance examination sat normally by the Presbyterian Church. And I got admission into Presbyterian Middle Boys Boarding School, Atosu, what they call Ussher.
Salem now.
Yeah. Which was established by the Germans in, I think, 1845 or so, long ago. And from there, I went to secondary school. I went to Zion College in Keta, which is now at Angloga. Yeah. So from there, I went to Charles University in Prague.
How was the transition like? I mean, which years are we talking about? The late 50s, early 60s?
Early 60s. Early 60s, yeah.
Right.
By then, things have been set up so nicely that if you pass your exams and you are qualified to move on, you move on.
Yeah, one thing logically led to the other. But you must have been a privileged boy at the time, having gone through a school, Zion College at the time, which would not at the time be in the league of the Achimotas and and then having direct access to a foreign university. What was the trick?
No, there was no trick. It all depends on your how strong your pen is. During the examinations.
So was it a scholarship?
Yeah, it was a scholarship. It was a government scholarship. By then, I remember they have just started the medical school here. but still, government was sending a lot of people outside. Nkrumah had a policy which was quite a wonderful policy. I think the first batch of medical students here, I always remember Professor Comey, a very brilliant chap. They started really, and then the others. Why they keep on bringing the new ones here? Others were sent outside to various countries.
And you're talking about medical students.
Medical students, engineering, architecture. I mean, Nkrumah was, a man with enormous vision. So, he knew exactly what he was looking for. So you can imagine if all these people have come back, the sort of country we would have had today. Unfortunately, most people didn't come back.
But you came back.
I came back, yeah. I remember I finished in 72 or so, and then I had an interview at the Ghana High Commission in Britain. It was an interview, what we call in the military, a selection board. But then we had...
No, hang on. The Charles University is in...
It's in Prague.
Czechoslovakia at the time.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, the now Czech Republic. Okay, good.
So when I finished my studies, I did my house work, what we call housemanship, everything.
Over there?
Yeah, I did it there.
Okay.
And then I applied to join the military.
In Ghana?
In Ghana. And the interview was to take place in London. So I came down, went to the High Commission. They have the division, what we call the Military Advisor's Office. And those in charge at that time, the one really in charge at that time was Lieutenant Colonel Anokwenu, who later became Force Commander and a General.
Wow, wow, wow.
The other person there too was, he was in the Major Francis Ajem Frank, who also later became a General.
Yes.
I think Major General. So
yeah.
It was quite an interesting thing. We had about quite a number of doctors who wanted to join the military at that time. We had an interview, and when they finished with me, they asked me to wait a bit. So we were quite a number, as I said, but two of us were picked, myself and one John Kobner, who was a dentist. So from there, I came back to Ghana. Now, after a week, I was called to the Military Academy and Training School, where I went through my military training.
Great.
Just like any other infantry officer. So as you see me, I can handle weapons just like any person, any infantry officer.
Do you still remember your weapon training?
Oh yeah, I do. But I remember even those who took us in weapon training.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
So did you really want to become a military man or a medical officer?
Well,
when you were growing up?
I think first a medical officer. The military idea came later.
Okay.
And that came in when I realized
that people could do coup d'etats and become heads of state.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. What I remember clearly was that my late uncle, who established Nyaho Clinic, was the first Ghanaian ever to head a military hospital.
Oh,
you follow me?
Right.
So that was one thing that really encouraged me a lot. Yeah. And then I had friends from secondary schools and even primary schools who became military officers, well-known military officers. I got into the military. My mother unit was a military hospital.
Okay.
But as usual, I was attached to a battalion.
So did you do the long service training or the professional training as a doctor in the military?
No, we have what we call short service training for professionals.
Yes.
It was so intensive.
Of course. I mean, it's military, whichever way you look at it, yes.
And one thing that I always want to bring it to the notice of our leaders. While there, I was a bit difficult at the military academy.
You mean you were stubborn?
I was stubborn. And I remember I was marched to the commanding officer one day.
And you're not scared?
No, I wasn't scared. I wasn't scared at all.
Because if you're in the military academy, that is a scary thing.
Yeah. And not because I was stubborn, I wasn't listening to others, but we had an exite and I overstayed. And the military, they
You
don't take
don't
such
get
a-
away with
exactly.
that. Yeah.
So I must be punished, definitely. So I was marched to the commanding officer, who happened to be a Canadian officer, a white man. His name was Lieutenant Colonel Digobeo. I still remember that name vividly. Now, when I was marched to him, he asked the RSM to go away and leave the two of us alone there.
Was the RSM, regimental sergeant major?
That's
Was
right.
he Ghanaian?
Was a Ghanaian.
Okay.
He was a Ghanaian. RSM Gakpleazi. When you see him, tall, well-built man.
They don't speak much.
No, they don't speak. So the colonel asked him to go. The colonel was then the commandant of the academy.
Okay.
So when he left, the colonel said, young officer cadet, they never address you as a doctor. Young officer cadet Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe. I know if you leave the country today, back to Europe or America,
You
you'll
get
be
a
okay.
job.
You'll be okay. But don't forget, you are building a nation. This is what he told me. And if you stay, it will help Ghana. And that changed me completely. But he still decided I must be punished. So I had what we call, every afternoon during break period, I would dress in my full military order. We call it battle order. You have all your things at the back and everything for porches, with my rifle, and the rifle was a very heavy one.
Heavy one.
RSM-1.
Is it
Very, very heavy.
Kafugbe?
No, though it was a modern rifle, but very heavy. It wasn't the Kafugbe type. And I have to trot on the parade square.
In your shoes?
I say fully dressed, military
Whoa.
uniform, with your bags at your back and everything, with holding the rifle too,
Yeah.
I had to do that every day for a week. It wasn't a joke. Then after that, I realized that I have now been changed completely. I've been transformed, if I use the word.
So you survived 6 months of military
No,
training?
we didn't have 6 months. We had 3 months.
3 months at the time. But intensive.
Oh, very intensive. Very, very intensive.
And you graduated from the military academy?
From the military academy. I left the military academy in 74.
1974.
74, and I quickly came to 37. I was in 37 for a while. Then I was attached. Very interesting. I was attached to a recruitment team.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. So now you are watching the footprint, and you're hearing the voice and seeing Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe. Very interesting, very exciting, and I'm sure that you stay tuned and watch what unfolds as we get into his life now as a doctor and a military man, and the years ahead, how he made it, how his name later on was everywhere in the news. Was he notorious? Was he stubborn? Or was he just being motivated by what he stood for? We'll be right back. This is The Footprint.
For the highlights of the top stories from the newspapers and the in-depth discussions of the news, What the Papers Are Saying, your weekly newsstand show, which sums up the big stories from reliable newspapers and news websites.
I think what should happen in all this is that they need to sit down and reconcile the systems they use. If they agree to use one system, let's ensure that that same system is used. Because if we are using another system and I'm using another one, the conclusions may not be the same, because each system has assumptions it makes, each system has conditions and things they must meet, etc.
Join Vivian Kailoko and her panel to review the headlines, break down the stories, and analyze the issues. What the Papers Are Saying is this and every Thursday at 9 p.m. on Citi TV.
Get the backstory of the major news stories on press conference. Hear from the editors and reporters behind the biggest stories of the week.
But they are now labeling us, and rightly so, because I think that we are not taking our security seriously enough. Look, Duke, there's more to policing than standing on the road and taking money from people.
And providing cars.
This is not policing. This is not what security is about. You understand? We are all at risk. I am scared because nobody feels safe. You understand?
Press conference every Sunday at 8 p.m. with Duke Mensah Opoku, only on Citi TV.
So this is still The Footprint, and you're watching Citi TV. And my guest today is Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe. You heard him. His early life in Accra, his secondary education in Qatar, and also to university, Charles University in Prague, the then Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. And incidentally, he later on became Ghana's ambassador to Serbia and Montenegro at the time. They are close, right?
Yeah.
They are close, okay. We'll be talking about that. And so you're welcome back to The Footprint. So, Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe, it's, you are now in the military as a medical officer, and you know there are a lot of the milestones that define your career would be captured within the space within which you spent in the military. Can you walk us through some of those?
Yeah, my short stay in the military.
How long is short?
Short? I think about 3 years, 4 years. It can be 4 years, in fact.
Okay, so
Yeah,
maximum
it was
of
quite
4 years.
eventful.
Well,
Very eventful.
it's filled with a lot of stories.
I remember when I graduated from military academy, as I said earlier on, I reported straight to a military hospital.
In your military uniform.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we're showing some of those pictures.
My military uniform. And so a few months after that, I was attached to a recruitment team.
Within the 37 hospital or the military?
The military
establishment.
The recruitment team in those days was, we visited all the regional capitals to recruit soldiers into the armed forces.
At which level? Professionals or what we used to call boys' company?
Boys' company level, if I would say so. Those who really want the military as a profession, not professionals.
Yeah.
And these were other ranks, not officers. So we went to all the regional capitals. And we ended up at Bolgatanga in those days. It was then not a regional capital, but that was where we ended up. And the officer in charge then was Lieutenant Colonel Foso Apia, whom I mentioned earlier, later became the commander of 2B in Takoradi. And when the 31st December took place, he moved troops, to Accra to sort of quell it, and he didn't succeed. And after that, I came back to 37 again. Well, that's my mother unit. And I was now sent to a battalion, 1st Infantry Battalion at Michel Camp. And that's where I was for quite a period. And the commander then was one very experienced officer, Colonel K.K. Nyame. I think he's still around. Now, the brigade commander is the one who is in charge of 4 of the southern sector. Then was General Odate Wellington. He was then a colonel, I remember very well. A very strong man, very strong man.
Learned.
So professional in the military. So then I was moved to 5 Battalion of Infantry. 5 Battalion of Infantry is positioned at Michel Camp. At Burma Camp. And most of the coup d'etats in this country originated or come from them. So they are
5BN,
quite
that's all.
5BN, very notorious in these things. Now, still Odate was then the commander of one brigade. A number
So
of
one
battalions,
brigade at a time would consist of?
yeah, a number of battalions will give you a brigade. And we had then, in those days, 1 brigade and 2 brigade. 1 brigade covered the southern sector, and 2 brigade covered the northern sector.
Okay.
When the northern, we talk about the northern sector.
From Kumasi.
From Kumasi, that's right. So in fact, the 2 brigade commander is stationed in Kumasi. So I was there, and then whilst in 5 battalion, I remember I prepared the troops for the Middle East. I examined them, both officers and men, those who are qualified to travel, you know.
And you're talking about medical
Medical, that's
examination.
right, that's right. And we moved to the Middle East, I think somewhere in 76 or so. Then the commanding officer of 5 battalion was one Lieutenant Colonel Abana. I think he's still around. I think he's doing some farming in the north now. And these were very professional soldiers.
Oh,
very,
yes.
very professional. And then we stayed there for about 6 months on the desert. That's the Sinai Desert. I remember when we got to Egypt, we crossed the Suez Canal and then got onto the Sinai Desert. And we made a journey.
And which war were you dealing with at the time?
That was after this, I think 76 war or so. I can't remember the exact name. And one significant thing also was that we had, as a commander in those days, a UN commander in those days was General Erskine. So you can see that Ghanaians were playing a role there long ago.
So General Erskine was the UN commander
that's right.
for the whole operation.
Exactly. For the
Not
whole
just in charge of Ghanaians.
No.
I
for
think
the whole
that has to be well stated,
Yeah,
yes.
I remember I visited him in Jerusalem. I know him very well. We are very good friends. And I noticed in his office, on the wall were pictures or portraits of all the commanders. And they were all white people. So I said, Hatu, why is your picture not there? And I said, I'm in the seat.
I'm in motion.
I'm in motion, that's right. But now that is not in the seat, I'm very sure his picture
is
there.
there. Yeah, his picture is there.
And I too got on and became really a big force commander for the whole United Nations.
That's correct. That's correct.
Now, from there, when we were there on the desert, we had a visit by the then Foreign Secretary or Minister, if I would say so, in person of Colonel Roger Felly.
Roger Felly, yes.
Yeah.
So
Roger,
this would be under the Couture Champons
Couture
government.
Champons, exactly. So Felly came with a number of professional diplomats from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And he met us. First he met the men, we call them the men. And then later he met the officers.
Yeah.
Now when he met the officers, he came out with a program, because this is very interesting, what I'm saying now, that the government has decided that there should be what they call all-inclusive government. That's a champion's idea. That is, the government should be made up of soldiers,
civilians,
policemen, civilians. I mean, all-inclusive. And that's what he has come to inform us about.
So this will be, say, 4 years into Couture Champons government.
Exactly, 4 years into Couture Champons government. So when he finished addressing the officers, normally we have been brought up in such a way that when you are in the mess, you can speak your mind, and nobody will touch you.
Yeah, man.
After addressing this, I noticed there was silence there. Nobody asked him any question. So he asked, young men, have you got questions to ask? Then I asked him, I said, Roger, you can address, your commander with his first name in those days. He said, Roger, sir, I don't think we have been commissioned to command or get involved in politics actively. And then he smiled. I remember very well. He smiled and said, oh, Nyaho, things have changed. Well, it's changing. So I kept quiet. And unfortunately, during the execution of the generals, he was one of those who was executed.
That's true.
That's almost 40 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So when we came back...
Actually, exactly 40 years now.
Yeah. When we came back from the Middle East, 2 weeks after my arrival, I was arrested by the military.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't arrested for nothing. I was arrested because when I came back, I had a call from somebody I've known when I was at the age of 15, 15,
mm-hmm.
by the name of J.A. Atokwashi. You might have heard the name.
Of course, from Choco.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, I went to see J.A., as we call him. And when I got in there, I saw one of our senior officers whom I've never met. I just see him in pictures and whatnot, by the name of Colonel George Minyela.
Minyela. Mm-hmm.
May he rest in peace. I think he's passed on also.
Not too long ago, right?
Not too long ago.
Yeah.
He later became Ghana ambassador to Upper Volta during the time of J. Kufuor.
Mm-hmm.
So I met George with Atokwashi, and George told me that he's happy to have seen me. And he talked about his plan to change the government. He was very blunt. And he's been in government before. He was once a commissioner himself.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, he was positioned also later at
was the regional commissioner?
Yes, at the regional commissioner in the Eastern region.
Eastern.
And he transformed those who are
credited for the so-called Kofodua flowers.
Exactly.
Doing the landscaping and all the things Minyela is to be credited for. Yeah.
Was responsible. So when he spoke that, he was quite positive in what he was saying. And then when he realized I was from 5BN,
mm-hmm.
That's 5th Battalion, 5th Battalion, 5th Infantry. He was even more interested.
Mm.
So he asked me if I have a friend I can trust. And, so I said yes. So I mentioned a friend who was then Captain Sami Totime, a Shanghai Strait officer. So I talked to Sami and invited Sami to Ato's place, and we met him. And the discussions were going on. We have been attending meetings with the aim of overthrowing Achiampong.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing he said that even got me more interested in involved was that with the removal of Achiampong, or if Achiampong is removed, our stay as a government will be very brief, and then quickly bring in civilian government. This is what he said at that time. And whilst we were preparing for a coup d'etat, there had been a series of meetings. I think he got somebody also in who later gave...
But who is this person who got in?
For a lot of reasons, I wouldn't like to mention his name now, but he's
right.
still alive.
Okay.
I can later tell
you. Well,
you
know yourself if you're watching us.
Who, unfortunately, if I'll say so, informed the...
Blew your cover.
Yeah, blew the cover, if I'll say so. And he was still attending meetings, but nobody suspected him. So now you have a mole in there. You follow me? So anything that you did or said...
He defined our political culture that was to be later. There's always a mole somewhere.
That's right, that's right. So the D-Day, or the night before the D-Day, we had a last meeting at somewhere in Carnation.
Mm.
And just when I got back home, a car drives in or drove in. And
where were you living at the time?
I was then at Michel Camp, but I've come down to Accra.
Okay. But you were working
my
at
wife's
5BN in Burma camp.
You see?
You were working at 5BN in Burma camp.
Yeah, but
you're living in Michel camp.
Because I was in Michel camp before I came to 5BN.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I was then in my wife's. I came down to Accra for the weekend. I remember it was a Friday. To my wife's parents' house. You know, that was where I was arrested. Okay. I was arrested and taken straight to special
so you left
branch.
Kaneshi.
Yeah, I left Kaneshi.
And then your wife's, your in-laws' places will be where?
Oh, just at Roman Ridge.
Roman Ridge.
Roman Ridge. And in fact, the idea, I came there because the idea was we were going out to a disco.
Okay.
That was the plan.
You're the man about town.
Not really.
Which were some of the discos at the time?
Oh, discos, we were then going to
Metropole,
Keteke.
Jesus Christ.
Keteke or Gondola.
No, and you were doing the dance,
oh,
Gondola.
Yeah, we had a lot of interesting jams those days. Very interesting. So when I was arrested, I was sent straight to special branch, one of their detention places, almost opposite the military hospital.
Yeah, 37, yeah.
Although I knew what I've done, so I wasn't really bothered. I knew what I've done, so I wasn't really bothered.
But I'm sure you were wondering what else they knew that you did.
Exactly. By then I had no idea that there had been a mole also. Later on I got to know, or we got to know. Then I noticed also that my other colleagues have all been picked up. But you know, Atogwashi was picked up, Captain Tajman was picked up, Captain Ayu was picked up, and Kenneth Minyala was picked up. Now, what they did was that they sent us, no, only 2 of us were sent to the special branch cells. What now they call BNI. Formerly it used to be called special branch.
Special branch, yeah.
So we're sent to a special branch cells. You will never know who is next to you.
Yeah.
You are stripped down, naked, with only your pants underwear on you. You sleep there, mosquitoes. You can imagine. They had a light on, very powerful lights like this, in 24 hours. So we were there for a couple of days. It was getting into weeks. Then you can know that there's something serious happening. Then they started with their usual questionings, if I'll say so. I was sent to, of course they pick us individually. I was sent to one of their meetings where I was questioned.
Now, let me put this thing in context. So you were a young military officer who was also a professional as in terms of your medical practice.
Exactly.
You were practicing medicine as a military man, and you were drawn into this whole coup d'etat thing. And so you had hopes of getting into leadership of some sort, or determining who becomes the legitimate leader of the country.
Right. That's right.
So you've been passionate about leadership right from that.
Oh, absolutely. Whoever leads this country, I feel must be somebody who is really competent.
Okay, so they took you to, do you remember some of the people that questioned you during this
yeah, I do.
period?
I remember the chairman for that particular interview was, I think, still around. He was then Chief Superintendent of Police, Mr. Francis Poku, who later became Minister of National Security. So you can see.
It goes round, eh? So
very interesting, very interesting. Francis, I remember. And, you know, he was such a gentleman, very calm and cool, his questioning. And, but I noticed one thing, that if you really want to sort of, because they have all the information already. You follow me? So with my experience in psychology and whatnot, you know, you either tell them what you know. Don't try to, you know. Well, if you try to evade certain questions, rather, then they will be physical on you. You follow me? And Francis was such a wonderful gentleman. And after we were released, we have become very good friends till today. Oh, yeah.
So under what condition were you released, and were all of you?
I mean, it's quite interesting. When we were in special branch cells, we stayed in there for 3 months without even seeing the sunlight. That's where you do everything. That's where you live. That's where you sleep. Then I remember one fine morning we were asked to get ready to go and meet a gentleman. And he was then in charge of intelligence. He was a police officer. I think the name is Bokman. Bokman. Another fine gentleman. We met him, and we thought we were going to be released because George Miller kept on saying that they can never try us. Because he was once in government, he knows exactly why he says so. So when we met this gentleman, Bokman, fine officer, he had a chat with us. But then there were a lot of problems in town. Chairman was facing a lot of problems. Very, very serious
Was Bokman
challenges.
in government at the time?
Oh, he was then head of security. You follow me? National security.
Yeah. What's the full name?
Bokman. There were 2. One was a soldier, but this one was a police officer. It was a police officer I'm talking about.
Okay. There was one who was very popular in the 70s and late 70s.
Yeah, I think that was Captain Bokman. That was a soldier. Well, this one, definitely, I think he was commissioner of police also.
Okay.
No, he spoke with us nicely. We thought we are going to be released, but when he finished with us, we just marched back to our cells.
Oh.
Very, very, very disappointed. I'm telling you. I remember what he did was that he allowed us to be given meals from home. That was the only thing. But even that didn't even take a long time. I think 2-3 days later, we asked once again to get together. They brought us our uniforms and we dress up. We were put into a van with cars, with guns, and we started. The vehicle was moving towards the northern part of the country. We had then left Accra. We noticed that we were heading north. We passed through the various, villages along the Nsawam road. And lo and behold, we ended up at Nsawam prisons.
We will come back and talk to Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe to tell us his life in Nsawam prisons. This still is the footprints.
The policymakers, the top personalities, the people are the center of the news. They speak on Face to Face, one-of-a-kind access into the lives and the stories of our time.
I can play past all the current players. The current players in Ghana Premier League.
That's a serious statement coming from somebody who hasn't played in almost a year.
You know something? I know myself. That's why I said, if you don't know me, you don't know me. It's all about what you can do, just seconds.
Face to Face with Godfrey Akotobuafo every Tuesday at 9 p.m. Tune in to The Point of View, Mondays and Wednesdays at 9 p.m. as Bernard Avlet takes the news further. He will bring the right guests, ask them the relevant questions, and get you the real insights you need on the big stories for the day.
But they love me. You know, they love me to bits on the campaign trail. They love me to bits. Because, you see, we are of the view that people want to hear lies. It's not true. Okay. People can decipher lies and truthfulness. And behind it all they know who is speaking the truth. And even though they may shout or not shout or everything, at the end of the day, they respect you for being who you are.
The Point of View with Bernard Avle, Monday and Wednesday nights, only on Citi TV. Point of View is brought to you in association with Stanbic Bank. Moving forward.
Welcome back to the program. This is The Footprint. My name is Samuel Atamensa, and I've been speaking with Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe. Dr. Nyaho, welcome to Nsawam.
Thank you. Well, someone reason, it was then that it dawned on me that I'm in trouble.
It's a real deal.
It's a real deal. Because we got in there were about 3 gates. You pass the first gate, second gate, and before you got into the yard itself. And we were unloaded there, all of us.
So you were all together?
We were all together.
In the same vehicle?
In the same vehicle.
So what was going through your mind as you traveled?
Well, initially, I thought we were being sent to the north. And normally, when you are sent to the north, it's mostly war prisons. You see? And that would have been a big blow because you don't have access to anything. No member of your family can see you. Well, it's quite far, you know. You won't have what I call either regular visits or anything as a prisoner. Now, all this time we're in detention. We have not been charged, nothing. So we go to Nsawam, we were put in our various cells. And then, you know, Nsawam, you have it's a huge prison. And you have a number of cells will give you a block. You follow me? And we were put into we were divided into various blocks. We were not put together into any one block as such. And then it was then that it dawned on me that I was really in big trouble. And when you get into the cells, because you have a lot of other prisoners there, the inmates there, if I'll say so, and you really have to behave yourself. Yeah. That's the word, to conform, you know. So we're there quietly. And then I remember one day, the director of prisons came there for a visit. For what reason, I don't understand. The director himself, one Mr. Aloti, if I can remember the name. And he went round, you know. Then we stayed in Nsawam for just about 2 weeks or so. Then once again, we're moved. But Atokwashi was left in Nsawam. When we were moving, we were this time heading southwards. And we ended up in Ussher Fort. Ussher Fort is a huge prison.
Closer to the sea.
Closer to the sea. And I remember we went through the normal things, you know, as new prisoners or detainees, well, whatever, however you term it in those days. And we were put at a place called Upper Landing. I still know the place, you know, if I go there now I can. And we were 4 soldiers. And there were 2 double beds. Some slept on top and the bottom. So 4 soldiers now in detention. And once again, we had a visit from the director of prisons. And this time we were not at all happy with him because he came and saw us eating. We have arranged to eat some kenke and corned beef, and he came and saw it. And he asked how exactly had it, and that became a big problem. So
because 1977 it was.
77.
And military officers who had planned a coup and were under detention.
Yeah.
You were eating corned beef.
Corned beef and kinky.
At that time, we used to call it corner beef.
Corner beef.
In the corner. What?
You know, when we got in there, some of the old prisoners, especially those who have stayed there for years, especially those who were condemned to be killed and then later it was reprieved and whatnot. We call them black coats.
Black what?
Black coats, because they wear dark dresses.
Oh, black coats.
So they are known as black coats in the prison yards. They know the in and out of the prisons. They are very helpful. If you want something, you have to talk to them and they know how to get it in for you. So this is how we got our kinky and corned beef. And the director wasn't happy at all about it. Anyway, we stayed in there. We spent a year. We were getting to the second year. It wasn't a joke. You can see prison life, really, very interesting. Then...
You were at Ussher Fort for 1 year.
Oh yeah, 1 year plus. And then, you know, at times you get even fed up. When I got in there, there was interesting. There was also present, of course, with a different problem. J.H. Mensah has been brought there. Oh, we met him there, J.H. Mensah.
He was serving before you.
Yeah, he was serving before we came in. I think theirs was about sedition also. Himself and I.C. Coup. So you can see that. So these things. Sheikh was there himself too. And then later, very interesting, they appealed their case. And then the judge who sat on it was late Kurantiado.
Oh, Mrs. Kurantiado.
Very interesting, Mr. Kurantiado. And Kurantiado released them. I think you follow how these things work.
That's correct.
Then we were there one time when Achemon started this referendum.
Yeah,
Unigov referendum. And the election, Mr. No and others, I'm talking about Martin Few and all these characters. And then finally we learned that the government, or Achemon, has won the referendum. So J.H. Mensah told me that I shouldn't mind him at all. J.H. Mensah is an experienced politician.
Yeah.
Then I remember there was some sort of unrest in the area. So they brought soldiers and Navy.
You mean areas in the Ussher Fort?
No, outside Ussher Fort.
Okay, so this will be the
I think people were not happy.
Road.
That's right. People were not happy at all about the results of the referendum. That's right. Then one of the Navy chaps, the ratings told us that things are very bad and he doesn't know how the government can survive. So we were there and we had our meals and everything. Now,
did you have access to the news when you were in prison? TV news, newspapers?
Definitely not private. By then, you didn't have these private stations, radio stations. There was nothing at all.
But at least
we had there was a radio box, this old radio box.
Yeah, the brown one.
Brown one. I remember it was on our corridor.
Kofi
Adeka, that's right. It was our corridor. And J.H. Mensah was fond of listening to the news, you know.
Yes.
Even though it was nothing really to think about. What the government says is what exactly come on. So we were there. The J.H. Mensah has been released now. Then we heard of some sort of problems in town. And then they brought in two giant politicians. I'll never forget. K. Gbadema and Pa Willie Oforiatta. They brought them in. These were elderly people.
To Ussher Fort.
Now, Gbadema stayed in there briefly. Then he was moved to James Fort. You know James Fort?
Yeah. But they were close to each other, right?
Very close.
Yeah.
It's a walking distance. Pa Willie was left at Ussher Fort. And he was so relaxed. I was surprised.
And this is Mr. William Oforiatta.
That's right. He was so relaxed. We should chat with him and tell us about, in fact,
about the struggle.
It was it was my close connection with Pa Willie that got me more involved in politics. He talked a lot, and the man with enormous, intelligence.
His persona.
His persona was such. If you see him,
relaxed.
And at that time too, he has become what is the thing he was doing? He has become something like a preacher.
Evangelistic. He led the evangelistic crusades. And yes.
So he combines those and advises.
That's correct.
Then they stayed in there for a while, and then they were also removed, but they were released. So we were there continuing with our struggle. Then we were in the yard one time when we heard inside. In prison, when you hear the warders shouting inside, then you know that there's something wrong. So we all came into our various places, various cells. And then we noticed that the prison gates were being opened. And then a car drives in. It was a car of the deputy director of prisons at that time.
You remember his name?
Yeah, one Agbo.
Agbo.
The name was Agbo. Then we are told he went to the office where the director of prisons in charge of Ussher Fort was. And then we were called. We went in there, and then they say, government has directed that we should be released. And that was after the removal of Achiampong.
Okay, so this will be in 78.
78. And who was in charge then? I think Akufu.
FWK.
Akufu was in charge. So we were all surprised. We really, the time was about 6, 7 p.m. So we told them, no, we shall go the next day. They said, no, you have to go now. Very interesting. So, okay, we have quickly to make arrangements. They brought us our various clothing. If you see it, you'll be shocked. After 2, 3 years, 1, 2 years, you haven't used the clothing, then they bring it to you. I remember they brought me my wristwatch and other things. And we got ready, and
then you left Ussher Fort.
Just like that. And then the following day, I think we came there.
Okay, so you have spent some time, almost 2 years, behind bars for something that you do not deny that you did. You actually did it. And you meant to overthrow the government of Kutu Achiampong, which one of his closest aides, FWK Akufu, did on your behalf nicely. And so you were released. Okay, so you have been watching The Footprint, and this is where we lower the curtains for this part of the conversations with Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe. We will come back to you next week with the second part of the story. Now Dr. Nyaho Nyaho-Tamakloe has come out of prison. He has been released. But was he to go back quietly into his medical practice? Was he to go back into the military? How did he end up in politics? So stay tuned to Citi TV. One of these days, you'll be watching the second part. This is Footprint. My name is Samuel Atamensa. Thanks for watching.